Welcome to the Reboot.
Is that I think that sharing our journeys and who we are, before all of the business came about, all of the busyness, even though it has a mission and a purpose behind it, but that we are all still people. We have different stories behind what brought us to our present, and none of them look the same. There is no one way to go about going after your dreams, going after what you want to see manifest. And so I just always think it is important to let other people know who may be pursuing things similar to know that just keep going. Your story is your story. Your journey is your journey. And eventually everything will make sense and connect. So, which now brings us to the inspiration for you becoming a founder, and more importantly, becoming a Black female founder, because if nothing else, I know the people who are on this call know that there is a difference between being a founder and that of a Black female founder. So, Vanessa, what would you say was either your inspiration or that moment that you realized that the work you're doing now not only matters, but that you have to be the person to do it?
As someone who managed uterine fibroids, IBRIA, for 10 years of my life, I understood that if I didn't figure out who I was, right? 7.2 billion fingerprints separate. No one is the same, and even twins. If I didn't figure out who I was in my unique body, that I would probably become another statistic. And I didn't want that to happen. And so it was due to the 10 years of me learning my body, the good, the bad, and the ugly, while managing these bloodsuckers and a marriage and being at one of the top brands in the world, which is the National Football League. I was incumbent about finding out what is going on. What the hell is a fibroid? Why do I have it? Why is it trying to ruin my life? And the turning point for me was not even the surgery. It wasn't even being diagnosed. It was right when the fibroid started knocking on my uterine wall and said, "You starved us to death. It's time for us to leave. Get us out of here. Your body is too toxic for us." They started to hemorrhage. I went into and that's not the turning point. That's the beginning of the turning point. I went into the emergency room, and the doctor looked at me and said, "Oh, okay, so if you don't stop bleeding, we're just going to have to remove it." In my mind, I'm thinking she's talking about the fibroids. I'm like, no, I already have an OBGYN. She's going to take care of it. So, and to be clear, I said, "Remove what?" She said, "Your uterus." I said, "No, you're not." She says, "Yes, we are." I said, "No, you're not." She said, "Don't you want to stop bleeding?" "Yes, we are." Honey, put it like this. If I didn't pull up I should not have, thank God I didn't commit a crime that night, because I literally ran out of the hospital bleeding, and it was a trail that said, "Hell no, I won't go." Me and my best friend ran out of that hospital. And when I got home, cleaned myself up, I said, "Oh my gosh, this shit is happening across the nation. I'm educated." She didn't know my status. She didn't know my education. She didn't know my finance. She didn't know anything about me. She just straight up looked at me and told me she was going to take my uterus. That was the turning point. I said, "Oh no." So, as you know, I went to my Black female OBGYN and said, "Okay, doc, I think it's time." And she knew it was time because I told her it was time. She didn't tell me it was time. I told her it was time. That's the reason why you have Black women in America 240% more than any other ethnic background, dying at childbirth, because doctors are telling them when it's time to have their babies instead of doctors actively listening to the woman and saying it's time. So she did the surgery, 22 fibroids, and when I was recovering, that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a business one day. It wasn't then, but I said one day because I was still working at the time. And I started drafting up and drawing different types of pads and underwear and different things that I thought were going to help women who were just like me. Women who had issues with unique periods. Women who needed answers. Women who had to start from ground zero of learning their body because they were either on period birth control for period control, or using a bunch of Pampers, or just giving up their uteruses. And that was the moment. That was 2015, April 2015, when I said, nah, I don't want anybody else to go through what I went through. 10 years of research, I got to figure out a way to shrink it and get it out to the masses that need it. So that was the pivotal point. Then I got fired 3 days later from my job. So that I had no choice but to go out, get my MBA, and build a business.
Yes, you pushed through. You survived, and let me say, continue to be an inspiration. And we'll probably get into this later, but your experience that you had in the hospital when you said, "Oh my gosh, this is happening everywhere." If you could quickly tell us the statistics that you dropped on our call, just for those who are listening.
In the United States, there are 600,000 hysterectomy average every year. 300,000 are due to uterine fibroids. 1 out of 3 Black women will have uterine fibroids. Whose uteruses are they taking? That's just fibroids. I am not talking about endometriosis, PCOS, and cyanosis. There are about 10 different major reproductive illnesses that can affect a woman's lifestyle, because they're not life-threatening. Unless it's uterine cancer, unless they find cells, that is a completely different situation. That is acute, and it needs to be taken care of immediately. But chronic symptoms, you can manage, right? So I found out, I said, they're getting rid of our uteruses for symptoms? Nah.
And the cities, that's what also struck me. The top 3, what were the top 3 cities you would say where this disparity exists?
Yeah. I'm ashamed because I'm Brooklyn born and raised, but it's here in Brooklyn is the number one. So New York, Brooklyn, New York, and New York City, and Chicago. Chicago has a very high rate of not only the mothers passing, but the children not making it past 5 years old. And that, okay, these are 2 densely populated cities. But there's no way in the world you put New York and Texas in the same sentence with something that they have in common. And that is the death of Black women at childbirth, post-childbirth.
My goodness. So
that is a bipolar dichotomy, most ironic, like, what?
Right. Absolutely. And so that brings us to now, like, in you knowing all of that and all of the research you've done, all of the work you've been doing, take us through some of both your challenges and also your wins. Like when you decided to start BUPeriod and Menstrualtopia, the state of the Black Uterus, tell us what each of those efforts are, and just what your experience has been in trying to be an advocate and an entrepreneur that is addressing what is obviously a problem.
What do you want first, the good, the bad, or the ugly?
Oh my goodness. Take us through the good, and then bring it home with the reality, because it's also the reality. Those other two.
All right. Well, I think I shared it with you guys with well, as far as a Black female founder, it reminded me of when I was working in corporate America most of my life. There can only be 3 or 4 raisins in a bowl of oatmeal, and that meets the quota. So I was used to spending other people's money working at the NFL. I would get a budget and I would go out across the nation and build out programs. And they were mainly diversity, inclusion, and equitable programs of bringing women into the NFL spotlight to highlight how they can get into the pipelines to get hired in different positions on the field. and that had to do with the game. So that's where I discovered my actual passion. And I felt like I didn't really understand it at the time, but I'm the only, like, I didn't realize how crazy I stood out until I went to these different states in the country, and people, women of all colors, would look at me and say, how did you get to, and I'm thinking, hey man, because I'm from a city where you hustle and grind, I'm thinking, hey man, I was like, well, I went to a temp agency, and then, then I temp for a little while, and then, you move your way up. It was like, no. How does a woman like you get to a position like what you have? And I didn't know how to answer that. And that was across the nation. So then, coming into the startup world, I understood why they were asking me those questions. There can only be one or two or three. And so when Femtech is technology for women's health, started in 2013. So in grad school, I'm studying all the people who are in the Femtech market, and I only find about 5 Black women who are in the market, and they're bootstrapping. The Black and the white women, they're mainly white male founders with co-founders that are women, were getting $20 million. And I'm like, how do you go from Eve, where periods are ugly and disgusting and suck, to $20 million? So I'm like, all right, something's up here, but I'm going to keep going and see how I fit in. I still took that princess dilemma that I had, thinking that, hey, I know how to walk into a room and command a room. And no. Literally, I've been told, you're Black, you're a woman, and you are talking about periods, ain't nobody gonna fund you. And he was telling me, this is a white man, Silicon Valley, saying it from the bottom of his heart. And that was a color purple moment for me, absolutely. And literally, the hardest part was applying for I went straight for all of the Black grants, all of the people of color grants. I got zero funding. It's been 3 years, I've raised $35,000. So that's been the hardest challenge of raising money. I've won pitch competitions, they got grants, and it's been mainly white academia that I've been partnering with to help me get this far, and white accelerators and incubators to help me get this far. And I'm not sure where the disconnect is, but I have wanted so badly to connect with my people in this space. But for some reason, I don't know if it was the way I approach menstrual health, or if it was the fact that menstrual health is so still stigmatized and taboo and shameful. But I do want to mention something good, that my sister Crystal, she had the bootstrap 10 million on her own, and then she finally got funded 15 million. So Crystal of Ruby Love is the first Black woman in Femtech to raise that much money. But after she bootstrapped 10 million. So that's been the toughest part, is the fundraising. The good part has been me understanding that my talents that I brought from the NFL as someone who puts on programming, I'm able to connect with people. So the first connection was definitely with the young kids. So I did all workshops for young kids on menstrual health management for free, shelters for free. And then I realized I had a product and started actually charging for my workshops for universities. The next stop was going to be corporate, and but then COVID came in. Parallel to me building the actual product. So everyone who's on the line, I'm building a smart pad product. So BUPeriod is we empower girls, women, and all who menstruate to learn, manage, and communicate. So first you have to educate and engage, then you give them the product. It's a real-time sensor pad that will give you information, risk indicators about saturation and potential correlation to iron levels, because we have period anemia, those of us that are heavy flow with fibroids and endometriosis. So that is my market, and I discovered that, and that was my target. So that was beautiful, interviewing over 300 women, getting surveys and videos and interviews. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, this is it. I'm in it. This is traction for me. This is proof. Still couldn't get the funding for it. So I'm working on building a pad. I'm running out of money. I'm working on, the workshops. COVID hits. So I'm like, all right, Menstrualtopia, how I met Monique, for real, is Menstrualtopia, the state of the Black Uterus. I applied for South by Southwest with Beatrice Dixon of Honeypot, which is another good thing, right? So the ups and downs, literally, were meeting all these great people and building my social network. The downs was really understanding that, oh my goodness, as a Black woman, those statistics are so damn real. And if we don't come together as Black women in this industry, we're in trouble.
Right. Yes. So just to make sure, because we do have a hand up, Bria, I do see you. With what you just said, Vanessa, what is your call to action to who's listening now and who may listen later?
Okay, call to action number 1, the 3 pillars: community. You got to talk, you got to speak. Do not shame. Period shaming is a no-no. If you hear it, if you get even around it, you got to stop it in its tracks, because the generation after us will continue to get their uteruses taken out. Number 2, really communicate with your loved ones and the people who are in your community that it's okay to share. It's okay to talk. You just have to communicate about what's going on with your body so that they know that they're not alone. And number 3, the biggest thing, and that's my little plug, please subscribe to BUPeriod.com. My goal is to build out Menstrualtopia, which was coined by Jennifer Wise-Wolf, who wrote the book Period. Menstrualtopia, she had a workshop that said, what is it? And it was all about, what is it? Well, I know what it is for my community, and it's about addressing the state of the Black uterus. So if you sign up at BUPeriod.com, we get that newsletter going so that we can have monthly workshops every month on the 28th to learn what uteruses. They are not one size fits all. They have their own unique things to learn about.
Okay. So I'm going to, let's see here. Bria, I just added you, I believe, to be a speaker. So I hope everybody was listening to those 3 calls to action. Vanessa, I'm going to ask you for them again after this call, so that when I send out a follow-up newsletter with the audio clips, I'm going to add those 3 in there. So were there any questions from anybody who joined us today for this discussion?
Hey, it's Lakeisha. I am so excited to hear your story, Vanessa. One, because I am a fibroids and endometriosis survivor.
Congratulations.
5 surgeries, and also a tech founder and investor. And so basically the product that you're talking about developing, 1, I wanted clarity. Is it already developed? And 2, I want to let you know that's in the wearable tech category. And I just so happen to be the founder of Wearable Tech Ventures, where we invest in that type of stuff.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Look at God.
Okay, answer your questions, girlfriend. The concept has been created. We have a very we were in testing. R&D. So let me start from the beginning. In 2018, we got the concept. 2019, we did a 3D body scan of a fit model to get the actual sizing of the pad. And we also started testing using Arduino systems on saturations and measurements and using different types of sensors. In 2019, I also built a biosensor. So these are all the different parts. And in 2020, once we realized that this can be done, I went out and got the provisional patent. So the R&D still has to happen with Cornell University because we went and got the IRB to body scan. Our goal was 100 Black women and women of color to do 3D body scans to get our correct sizes and ranges of sizes, because they're going off of an old database. And we found proof that we have different shapes and sizes. So that's number one. The second R&D is on the sensor itself, and was in the process of negotiating with Binghamton University to build out the wireless communication aspect, building out the biosensor with Biotech Without Borders, and last but not least, Hampton University is building out the scientific method, proving the hypothesis that the saturation can equal a code of your iron levels. So we have all those different pieces. It was just the funding, literally, which is why I'm going on this tour with Menstrualtopia to try to raise money and then crowdfund to put everything together for the prototype. So the full product has not been, we don't have a beta yet. We just have pieces of all the alpha. That's to answer your question. But we do have customer validation, and we do have the partners, and we do have the provisional patent.
Alrighty, and Bria, I'm not sure if you still had a question or comment, because you've had your hand up for some time, but I wanted to make sure Vanessa finished out letting us know her call to action and how we could further support.
Yeah. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Monique. Hi, Lakeisha. It's great to meet you all and hear your stories. Vanessa, I just want to say, thank you for starting this venture. I think it's so amazing, the work that you're doing. I'm someone who suffers from dysmenorrhea, and I'm in my 20s, and I've had to deal with this for a while now, and it's horrible. And so I thank you for what you're doing. And I started an organization called Love Your Menses, and we work with young Black and brown girls just talking about their periods. And one thing we started was Flow Tech for girls. And so the girls in the cohort, starting in January, will be creating a period mobile app by and for girls, where they can learn about their periods, and hopefully they don't have to deal with some of these reproductive health issues that women are experiencing. And so I would love to connect and figure out a way we can work together. I'm sure the girls would love to be mentored by you and learn more about the work that you're doing as someone in the femtech space, just as they're getting started with creating the mobile app.
Oh my goodness, this is fabulous. This is it. This is literally what you're doing is the key to Menstrualtopia, to bridging the gap, bridging the menstrual health equity gap. Because when these young girls are 8 is when they're supposed to know that they will be diagnosed. Unfortunately, they will be diagnosed. And it's the way that we tell them and we celebrate their menstrual cycles and let them know you are now unique and special. You're not like anybody else. Why? You're a woman of color. And it's a good thing, but it comes with some challenges. And we're going to make sure that by the time you're 18, you're going to be ready, fit, and equipped to deal with those challenges. So congratulations, Bria. That's amazing. I look forward to collaborating with you. Oh my goodness. And I would love to do a workshop with those girls.
Yes, I would love that. So I'll send you, I think I'm following you. So I'll find a way to connect with you so you can speak with the girls. Because they would love your input, because they're going to be the ones designing the mobile app. Because I really want it to be by and for Black and brown girls. And so I'm sure they would love your input to figure out what do girls need in order to understand the menstrual cycle, so that way they're prepared.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I'm excited. Please do.
This is what it is all about. And we were a small but mighty group of women today discussing something that, is both, it's important, but it's also empowering to know that we're not alone in our, in our journeys, whether they be in business, personal, health, just everything.